This is Melissa Dogherty, and you're listening to the Radical Radiance Podcast.
Hey friends, welcome to the Radical Radiance Podcast. I'm your host, Rebecca George, and I am so excited about today's conversation with my new friend, Melissa Dogherty, all about her newest book called Happy Lies: How a Movement You Probably Never Heard of Shaped Our Self-Obsessed World. This is such an important conversation about really the deception of new thought practices, and Melissa is the person to write this book for us. She is so smart, such an encouragement. You're really going to get a lot out of this conversation. Melissa Dogherty is a Christian apologist, best known for her YouTube channel with over 261,000 subscribers and counting. Her videos, which primarily cover New Age and New Thought, have been viewed over 18 million times. Melissa has a bachelor's degree in religious studies from Southern Evangelical Seminary, where she is also pursuing her master's degree in religious studies. Melissa is married with 2 daughters and lives in New Mexico, and I am so excited for you to learn from her today. So help me welcome our new friend, Melissa, to the show. Melissa, I am so excited to welcome you to the show today. Thank you for being with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I can already tell that we're going to be fast friends, and I am so excited about the message of your newest book. I'm going to read the full title for listeners who maybe haven't heard of it yet or are meeting you for the first time. It's called Happy Lies: How a Movement You Probably Never Heard of Shaped Our Self-Obsessed World. And I always love, especially with books like this, to just kind of hear the journey and allow our listeners to kind of peek behind the curtain of how did you begin to notice this and kind of see the need for the message of this book? I think it's so important for our culture right now, and I'm so excited for listeners to hear about it today.
Yeah, I think I've been kind of like writing this book since I was 16 years old and just didn't know it. It's one of those books.
Yeah.
I mean, I became a Christian at 16, but I got some frustrations with getting answers to my spiritual questions, to put it lightly. I just found a lot of pushback with asking tough questions, which is something I like to do. It's just I'm a very annoyingly curious. Like, if you've read the book, you know, I'm just like, hey, you and I do not agree, but let's go have coffee and talk about it. You know, like I've always kind of been that way, and I guess I've always been kind of an apologist in that way. And so I was 16, and some background with that is the household that I grew up in was Christian. But when I say Christian, it was just, I always heard fantastic stories of just spiritual experiences and vibrations and frequencies and mind power and what Jesus was really trying to teach us about our inner power and all these things. And little did I know there was a name for that. It was New Thought teachings. I did not even know really what that was for a long time. And so I was just always under the assumption, oh, this is just a more spiritual understanding of Jesus and Christianity and the Bible, but didn't give much thought until after I became a Christian, got kind of frustrated and curious. And then slowly over time, I started integrating these beliefs that I grew up with because they looked Christian, they sounded Christian, they quoted scripture, talked about Jesus, and it just seemed like a higher, more spiritually intellectual, science-y type of Christianity that I just did not see with a lot of other Christians. My average opinion of my opinion of the average Christian, I should say, was that they didn't really want to think really a lot about what they believed. They didn't want to ask hard questions. I found them kind of judgy. I just sat up a little bit straighter around them because I just felt like I was always on display, and I wanted to be more comfortable about my own spirituality. And I just didn't feel that way. And so even though that I think was a wrong opinion at the time, and I'm pretty sure I could have sidelined that a little differently, that is just how I felt at the time.
Sure.
And so time goes on, I get older, I get married, and I kind of, again, over time, it was a gradual thing. I'm reading these books on the shelf that we've had our entire life, that I grew up with from my great grandmother. And they're like really mystical and kind of cool. They're talking about, mind power, but also, so many other things, health, wealth, prosperity, about Jesus. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's just so much more. The laws of the universe, like these invisible spiritual laws that we can harness, so many things. And again, it's all made to look Christian. And one of the teachings that I really got into was the law of attraction. That was just one. And it wasn't until after I had my first child that I just started asking all these questions, and 2 Jehovah's Witnesses came and knocked that over because they challenged what I believed. Long story short, I ended up researching their beliefs while simultaneously learning what the Bible taught at the same time. And the internet had grown a lot since then. So I got more information, and it pulled the rug out from under me. I realized, oh my word, this is the serpent's lie. I've been, how in the world did I fall for this? I've been going to church for over about 10 years at that point, like actively in church. And I just never had heard anything about what I believed being unbiblical or wrong. Part of that could have been my own blindness, though, thinking I had this spiritual elitism, if you will, over everybody else. Kind of prideful. And then that was in 2011. And that's kind of where I start the book, is where, it's 2011. I have this rambunctious little girl. And then from there, I get into counter cult ministry to Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons. And then after that, it's a long story. And after that, this is what's really important. I thought I was in the New Age. Okay. I thought I was an ex-New Ager. Okay. And I'm still okay with people calling me an ex-New Ager. It's not a hill I'm going to die on. It's fine. But I am technically an ex-New Thoughter. I'm maybe 20% ex-New Age, and mostly the rest of that an ex-New Thoughter. Because I started noticing that there are things that people are asking me about that I had no idea what it really even was, like Reiki, sacred geometry, angel card, angel numbers, numerology. I knew was kind of, the thing, but I didn't know what any of this stuff was. Yoga, I had no idea that yoga would have been considered like New Age because it's like Hindu. It's a Hindu practice. I had no clue. Right. And so I'm like, I don't know. But let's lean into that. Like this is kind of more of what I was into, but let's learn more about this. And so everybody kind of picked and chose anything they wanted to believe anyway. So I'm an ex-New Ager. It was an umbrella term. But it wasn't until a few years ago that I'm in ministry. You know what I mean? I've been in ministry for many years. Yeah. And it wasn't until a few years ago that I realized, oh no, these are 2 different belief systems. Like there's a bucket for this, but there's a bucket for new thought. And I knew there was a word new thought. I just didn't realize how different it was from New Age, and that it's its own separate movement in America that has, in my opinion, affected Christians way more than the New Age. And I'm like, why is nobody talking about this? And when I had this epiphany, I never wanted to write a book. I don't know why y'all like writing. It's just like, no. Ew. Okay. Ew. And that should tell you how excited I was to know that this could not have just been a video, that it just had to be a book. And I'm like, had to be a book. Yeah. I know. So, but I had to write it. It was, it was something that it was, once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. And it was always in my head. I was just like, I got to know more. I got to know more. So I read more stuffy history books about New Thought. I did interviews. I'm looking at all the books right now. I had reference. I actually posted something today on my social media showing everybody. I'm like, these are the book references I used. And my heart skipped a beat seeing this, because it was such hard work, and the pressure to write a book. Like once it's out there, it's out there. It's not like a video. Right. And again, part of the disdain I had for even wanting to write, but I did. And I put my all into this book. It's not, it was it was a project that took a lot of heart. And so, that's kind of the story behind how it got started.
Every woman I know feels too late for her life. Have you ever felt stuck in the in-between, wondering if you've missed your moment? I've been there, and that's why I'm so excited to tell you about my book, You're Not Too Late, Trusting God's Timing in a Hurry-Up World. This book is for the woman longing for something, whether it's a spouse, a child, healing in a relationship, or clarity in your calling. This book is for the hopefuls, the almost but not yets, the crushed in defeat, the stunned by a lack of progress, and the weary woman ready to hang up her jersey. This is for the gal who snuck away during her best friend's wedding reception because she couldn't choke back tears any longer over her desire to be the one in white. This is for the woman whose lived experience doesn't line up with cultural norms and she feels less than because of the waiting. This is for the prayerful wife who can't bear to see one line across a pregnancy test one more time. This is for the gal who feels looked over or picked last. In You're Not Too Late, I share gospel-centered wisdom for navigating disappointment, envy, and doubt, along with encouragement and how to move from despair to joy, from doubt to hope, and from fear to confidence, and so much more. You'll find prayer prompts, discussion questions, and even an online video series to guide you through the journey chapter by chapter. So if you're ready to entrust your deepest longings to a dependable God, grab your copy of You're Not Too Late today. Don't forget to share it with a friend who could use a little encouragement too, or maybe even walk through it in your book club or small group. The link is in the show notes. All right, let's get back to the show. Radical Radiance is brought to you this month by Christian Standard Bible. Start your 2025 with the most important book of all, the Bible. The CSB Jesus Daily Bible is your perfect companion to keep Jesus at the center of everything you do this year. Through a 52-week guided reading plan, you'll explore the Bible thematically and see how Jesus is woven into every story from Genesis to Revelation. And the best part, you can jump in at any time, making it easy to stay consistent. Let the Jesus Daily Bible transform your time in God's Word this year. Check it out at the link in the show notes. Now back to the show. I love that so much. And thank you for powering through and doing the hard thing you didn't want to do, because I always tell people who say they don't enjoy writing and yet they sense God calling them to write a book on something. We have such limited capacity that what's so wonderful about, I think this message in particular, is you have limited capacity. All of us have 24 hours in a day, right? But you have done all of the hard legwork for us to package a resource that can go and impact thousands of people without your physical presence. Right. And so that's, I think, the gift that you're giving us in this message of like, I know it will become a resource for me when I have women in my life having questions and they want to explore this or want to understand the difference. We now have a book to send them. So I love that so much. And I think the subtitle of this book kind of captures it well of what you're saying. It's a movement that you've probably never heard of, but that has shaped our self-obsessed world. And it's a little bit hidden in plain sight, which you've described well kind of on your journey to the book. But if somebody's listening today and they're thinking, okay, I've heard of New Age, I may or may not have heard of New Thought. What would you say are the top differences in those buckets that you kind of described so that we can begin to start to see it in our culture, right? That might be a helpful starting place for people.
Yeah, it's like a magic eye. Remember those? That's what New Thought is. It's there. It's right in front of your face. But once you see it, you cannot unsee it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what it is. And so you do know what this is and you don't know. But simply put, New Age is, in my opinion, kind of like the red dude with the pitchfork and the pointy tail. It's very obvious. You're going to go in a New Age store and you're like, oh, tarot cards, oh, crystals, oh, chakra stuff, and you think, oh, that's New Age. We need to stay away from that. Numerology, astrology, spirit channeling, though there is some overlap with that. Transcendental meditation, tapping. There's so many things. I mentioned angel cards, angel numbers, things like that before that would be considered more New Age. New Thought is, if I could put it in a sentence, I would say the positive thinking movement in America with Jesus as its mascot.
Ooh.
Yeah. In two
words. Say that again. Say that slow. Say that again.
In a sentence to describe New Thought, it's the positive thinking movement in America with Jesus as its mascot.
Yes.
That's the way I would put it in a sentence. If I were to describe it in 2 words, it would be metaphysical Christianity. The main difference between the two is that New Thought is made to look Christian.
Yeah.
It comes with Bible scriptures quoting Jesus, but it has a more metaphysical, beyond the physical meaning. It's super spiritual. There's always a deeper, esoteric, hidden meaning to what you're seeing and reading. It has Gnostic roots, where New Age has Eastern roots. Okay, so they are 2 completely different movement when it comes to that. They do come together in certain areas. Like I said, I mentioned like spirit channeling before, occult things to get information, to get spiritual information. And they come together with the innate belief that humans are inherently good and divine. How you get there is a little different, but New Thought beliefs specifically would be, like I mentioned, the law of attraction. People think that's New Age. That's not. That is a New Thought belief. That is a New Thought belief. Christ consciousness is New Thought. Anything with like mind power and vibrations and frequencies of the universe and of the earth and of our mind and mind power, that's New Thought. And so that's kind of what makes it a little bit more tricky to define, is that you can have these beliefs, but it's so ingrained in Christian thought. Like the self-help movement. I have a whole chapter on this self-help movement because the movement that we have, the bookshelves on the personal growth and transformation development area in your local bookstore, they've been undergirded, and the foundation of it is New Thought authors. And Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, and all these other, Norman Vincent Peale, these people who say they're Christians. Some of them are ministers that have been teaching this super spiritual Christianity. So you can take what they're saying and talk about it a little bit more, but that's why metaphysical Christianity is, I guess, the easiest way to describe it. And another element of it being really in the church, and I have a whole chapter on this, is the Word of Faith movement. Nobody wants to talk. There's something for everybody in this book to be offended by. Let me just put it there.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? It's like, it's one of those topics where I'm like, man, there's so many groups of people that are not necessarily going to like this, but I'm like, guys, it is what it is. Here's the information, do with it what you will. And I end the book by saying, here's the baton, like take what I've walked with here and run with it, like build on this. This is so, important for us to know about this movement. It's been hidden for way too long. This is what I believed. Like these are the things that I believed and thought were true, more spiritual Christianity. But in reality, it's hiding this innate inner power and inner divinity that is cloaked in these really virtuous terms. Like every chapter needed a nuance for this reason, because you can have self-help and it not be a vice. You can have, you can have orthodox teachings in the Word of Faith movement, but then this other area, that's odd, is really something we need to talk about. This New Thought thing, where does this come from? And there's nothing wrong with wanting to be healthy and prosperous, but where does that derail into something unbiblical? So everything needed a nuance. And that's why New Thought is a little bit more complicated to define in that sense.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, as you think about walking alongside readers to help them discern these counterfeit messages and seeing that in our culture, what does it look like for believers to start differentiating and like splitting hairs over going, okay, this is New Thought versus this is what I actually believe? What might be, maybe a couple examples might help to help listeners go, okay, this would be that New Thought, maybe messaging, and here's how it's counterfeit to the gospel. To help us kind of start to differentiate.
All right. Well, there's a lot with that, but one thing I'm going to start with as an example. Well, first, let me say, knowing what this is the start. knowing, like just
Yeah.
identifying it, where you're like, oh, that's the history of New Thought. Oh, okay. I can kind of see how that got where it's at.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. And then that's going to do the job for a lot of people. Other people are going to struggle.
Yeah.
And one thing in particular I'm going to start with is declarations and affirmations. Affirmations, it's my chapter 7 about the law of attraction. You cannot talk about the law of attraction without talking about 2 other things: manifestation, and affirmations or declarations. And what affirmations are is new thought prayers. That's how they begin. That's how they even got into society. That word affirmation came from New Thought. The manner in which you say affirmations is New Thought. It's a New Thought practice. They are I am statements, declarative statements, declaring what you want, right? Yeah. And so affirmations, I am whole, I am blessed, I am this, I am that. And then saying encouraging statements, I'm whole, I'm blessed, I am a child of God, or whatever. Don't they sound exactly the same? They do.
Yeah.
And here's where I'm going to say that some of that is semantics. All right. Some people are going to listen to that and think, wow, okay, saying positive things to myself is affirmations. No. See, this is where it gets nuanced. See what I mean? Like where there's a level there.
This is what we need. Yes. So good.
Yeah. And I have learned the simplest way to tell people, because they know them as affirmations, but they might practice them very differently, right? Semantics. So let me first describe what affirmative prayer is in New Thought. And then I'm going to go over what it's not. And this is, again, just an example. This just is one practice of New Thought.
Many. Yes.
But this is why it's difficult. So what affirmations are. Okay, now something very important to remember about New Thought is that a foundational belief in New Thought is that you are whole, perfect, and divine. Now, as a Christian, we hear that and think that's stupid. Like, of course, we're not divine. Oh, no. Hold on a second. Pause the button real quick, because that's not exactly how some people think of that. Parsing that out, you have power within yourself. Listen to this. As a child of God, to create and kind of create, but also what's the word? Change, if you will, your reality around you because you're a child of God. Now that sounds different, doesn't it? And then you hear verses like, yeah, you have the power of the Holy Spirit within you, right? You should be able to heal, be prosperous, have these things within you as a divine right as a child of God. So that sounds different than saying you're divine. It's the same co-creating ability God has that has now been imparted to you. And now you, because you have the Holy Spirit dwelling in you, are able to speak things into existence, to think things into existence. You now have this power of prayer. And so when you say, I am, whatever follows that is something that you are affirming. Okay. So that everything I just said was New Thought.
Yeah.
Okay. Basically, that whole idea comes from the belief that you are divine. Okay. That you're just asleep to it, that you don't understand the power within yourself to make these things happen. Remember, it's New Thought. It's a new way of thinking. It's a new type of, it's mind power. And they misuse science like quantum physics by saying there's vibrations in your words and vibrations and frequencies in your thoughts. And so whenever you are a child of God, you are able to change that. You're able to affect that. All right. So whenever you're saying affirmations, because the world around you responds to what you're thinking, feeling, and speaking, when you're saying an affirmation, it's changing that. It's creating things to come into your world, into your reality in a way that you can control. Okay. Now, people are listening to that and they're like, I'm sure confused, because some of that sounds biblical.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying is that, yeah, of course some of that does. Yeah. Here's the problem. Okay. Now that's like a new thought affirmation. You are in essence demanding, you're declaring, you are taught to declare what you want, what you need. And it's supposed to change your brain waves. It's supposed to change how you think, how you feel. And there is some truth to that. That is actually a very good thing to do, by the way. I mean, you're thinking about, I can think of a few people, and a lot of them are Christians who are very cynical. They tend to be really overly picky, maybe overly critical, because they're trying to be biblical. They're trying to be as Christ-like as they can, but they kind of sound really kind of the opposite. And a lot of it has to do with fear. They're afraid of falling into wrong teachings. They're afraid of heretical beliefs, right?
Or they have in the past.
Yes, or they've been hurt in the past. Yeah. Hurt is at the foundation of both of those things. Everybody I talked to in a New Thought Center or researching or whatever had some sort of hurt or pain or something where they needed, this is what I'm getting at. They need the control. Yeah. They do. And if they don't, then something bad will happen to them. As simply as I can put it. Now, if you're taking, so those are affirmations. They're new thought prayers that you are declaring and affirming something in the now. You say it as if you had it. If you want to be healthy, for example, you don't say, I will get well. You say, I am well. I am healthy. And the idea is that the spiritual forces will cater to what you believe. Okay. Biblically, that is not how that works. Okay. There are some truths to that. Okay. That we do have power as believers, but the power that's given to you as a believer is the power that's given to you to overcome whatever you're going through, whether you get that or not. That's the idea. It's the submission, not the autonomy, that makes the difference with the Christian. The Christian looks to God as a sovereign for answers. Yes. And say you want healing. Okay. Healing is a big one.
Yeah. I was going to ask you to run with that example. Yeah.
Healing is a huge one because people are told that over and over again that, you can be healed. Absolutely. And that's the thing, is that people are healed miraculously all the time. Yes. But here's what they forget, that so people think, okay, there's maybe a gift of healing, which I do believe. I'm like left of center with sign gifts and charismatic stuff. I believe that, maybe somebody can pray over somebody and they're healed. But here's the thing. People get healed in new thought all the time. All the time. In fact, I'm staring at a book. Yep, it's still here on my desk. All it is testimonials of people who have done new thought techniques and healed themselves. Yeah. So what gives? Does that mean it's from God? Does that mean that God is blessing them? Is that a sign from God that what they believe is true? Okay. And I'll circle back to that one in just a second. But my point is for the Christian, it's God, your grace is sufficient for me. Yeah. Your grace is sufficient for me. Paul, I think it was Timothy. He had like a stomach ailment or something, and he didn't go and like lay hands on him and heal him. He's like, here's some medicine. Good luck.
Yeah.
You didn't heal nobody. This is something that people don't see a lot in scripture, but once you see it, I'm sorry, but it should bring relief to know that, oh, thank God you're with me no matter what. It doesn't mean you're this lower class Christian if you don't get a healing. Yeah. And I remember it was the man.
And it also means it's not up to you to do it.
It's not exactly. And that's the third point I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Because it is the sovereignty of God. Okay. The control that he has. That's the difference, is that it's in surrendering that control and letting it go and knowing to give to God and letting go. It's harder said than done, I know, but you have to understand, it's the man that Jesus was, he's walking and there's a blind man and he spits on the dirt and he rubs it in his eyes and he heals him. And I remember there's something that Jesus was talking to the disciples about, and the disciples are like, oh, what did this man do? Kind of like a Job situation. He must have sinned in order to be like this. And that's,
Yeah.
we still have that today,
Oh,
where
yeah.
people think that they've somehow attracted it to themselves, that maybe they didn't have enough faith or whatever it is. But the rain falls on the just and the unjust.
Yes. Yes.
It's absolutely strange. It's a strange thing to think that as Christians, we can avoid pain. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a Christianity that anybody can believe in then. Well, give me that Jesus.
Right.
That Jesus will
Right.
make me rich and prosper. That's a Jesus I can believe. Not this. This Jesus actually promises hardship and people won't like me. I don't like that Jesus. I like that one. Do you see what I'm getting at? It's like,
Yes.
it's this belief that no matter what happens, that he is still is who he says he is. Is he enough for you? Like, is he enough that
Yeah.
if you don't receive a healing or have one miracle or one supernatural thing happen in your life, will you still follow and believe him? And I think that's really what he wants. It's
Yeah.
if giving you a healing means that something in the outcome of that healing might ruin your relationship with him or with somebody else, or if keeping you in that moment of pain might bring about a greater good, even if it's neither of those things, the rain falls on the just and the unjust. Evil happens to all of us. And we have a part of good and a part of bad. And whatever happens, it's trusting in him no matter what. And even Jesus, he follows up after he heals the man. He said that this man was, in essence, I'm paraphrasing, the reason why he's the way he is to glorify God.
Yeah.
How do you glorify God when you're sick? Because that man still believed and had faith.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so,
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus left crowds of people who were still sick. He didn't heal everybody he came into contact with. And so when you're saying affirmations, and well, actually, let me follow up on what I just said about people being healed with new thought. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. This is a big thing. This is very interesting because this is what I don't hear a lot of people talk a lot about, is that like in new thought, one of the main verses in scripture that I heard used more than anything. Well, first the Sermon on the Mount, but Matthew 7, ask, believe, and receive. Okay. Because a lot of people might be thinking of Mark 11:24
Sure.
and Matthew 7:7, where it's like, what doesn't Jesus say to ask and believe and you will receive? Yeah. So and then you have James 4, which says you don't get what you ask because you ask with wrong motives.
Yeah.
James 4:1 or 4:3, I can't remember which one it is, but the motivation does matter, but it doesn't mean you can get whatever you want. It doesn't mean you can ask God for anything and everything and receive. Yeah. If you get enough faith, it's just, that's common sense. And it's also better hermeneutics to understand what does he mean by that? Anyway, Matthew 7:7 is like the formula for law of attractions, affirmations, manifestation. What I never hear them go over though is like the rest of Matthew 7, because later on in that chapter, Jesus is talking about people who will say, hey, they'll come to him and, Jesus, what gives, man? We did healings in your name. We did signs and miracles in your name. And he's going to be like, leave. I never knew you. So what does that imply? That there are false signs, wonders, and miracles. There are false versions of these things. And I think that and when people think false, they think, oh, they're just faking it. No. I'm saying no, they received something. And this is like occultic stuff. We're talking Deuteronomy 18 stuff, because God is saying, avoid sorcery, avoid witchcraft, avoid all these otherworldly supernatural things. Yes, you will get results from them, but do not do them. Why?
Yeah.
And one of the reasons he gives, get this, is you will go after other gods. Not only will you be deceived, but you're going to go and believe other spiritual beings over me because of these things that you asked for and got. Like, it's so interesting to kind of delve into and think about. And so, I mean, you do get results. I mean, occultic things and practices work. That's why people are attracted to them. Yeah. So that's a long answer to your question, but
I loved it. I loved it. And I mean, just to go back to, the thought of suffering and why does God allow it, which often accompanies the conversation of healing.
Yeah.
And that's a tough, that is one of the hardest conversations many times, I think, for believers to make sense of. And as you were talking, not necessarily about suffering, but about healing, I thought of Johnny Erickson Tata. Have you guys ever
Oh, I've heard
connected?
heard of.
Okay, so she had a diving accident when she was in high school, and her entire life has been a quadriplegic and has this incredible ministry for disabled folks, and has just allowed God to use her story in such a powerful way and speaks to suffering so beautifully. And something she said that, like, I remember the first time I heard her say it, I thought, man, that like challenges everything that would rise up in probably many of our hearts when we try to make sense of suffering. But once I sat with it for a while, I'm like, yeah, I would agree with you. She says, God many times will allow what he hates to accomplish what he loves. Speaking to her story, her point was like, does God love that I've spent my entire life in a wheelchair and probably will never be outside of that reality? Will know that grieves his heart, but at the same time, that has refined and shaped her as a follower of Christ in ways that she would say, I think if she were here, would not have been the case were it not for her story. And so God has used those things to draw her to himself. So just for listeners who are in the midst of maybe a challenging situation or hoping for healing, sometimes there's a hidden purpose there too in making us more like Jesus. I even think back in my own life and many of the seasons that I would attribute a lot of spiritual growth to were moments where I had nowhere else to turn but him. And I had nowhere else to go. And in those moments, it was what he used to make me more like Christ. You're thinking something.
Oh yeah. Thank you. Wow. It's funny because
I'm like, there's something swirling in her brain as I'm talking.
There is. Yeah. Yeah. I'm just thinking about what you're saying, and what it makes me think of is, what if somebody loses their faith over a tragedy that they experienced, over pain? Maybe they didn't get a healing.
Yeah.
Then what? What does that mean? Are you going to go sell your voice to Ursula to get what you want? You know what I mean? Like, how far are you going to go to get what you want?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you have to think you're still in the same position you were in before, being mad at God over not, and I get it. I get it. The why questions, like, this is painful. This is why people are attracted to these beliefs. Because they give you results, but at what cost? Because this life is not the end. I mean, we're talking about, I mean, you don't really die. You just change location, right?
Yeah.
And so what we go through here is temporary. But the other thing that I think a lot of people, I think what's really beautiful about the Christian worldview is that it's the only belief where the God of the universe became his own creation to walk with us through that pain, right? Like, he came and walks with us. He's with us through it all. And there's something very different about that message versus, oh, the power is in you. You're as good as it gets. You're in control. Because typically what happens is people will maybe go where they go to doctors, they do everything they can to try to get better. And they're not hearing like the best advice, right? Or the best, or the things that, the best news. They're not hearing the things that, oh, this is not good news, whether it's cancer or another ailment, another disease, whatever it is. And yeah, man, throw a fit. I mean, be sad, go weep in despair. You know what I mean? Like, that's something that, I think that we're not allowed. We feel like maybe we're not allowed to do, but then it's like, okay, well, how do I move on from this? What do I do? And I think some people, what they will do is they will venture into the occult without thinking it's the occult, right? They will go places thinking, oh, there is a Christian version for this healing thing, and I'm going to go. And the other thing is this is like, okay, here we are talking about like prosperity and healing. And there is a story Costi tells about a woman in his church, Costi's church, who claims to have been healed by Benny Hinn, like through the TV, right? He says, come get your healing, and that is like the reverse example of what I'll give to what I mentioned before, where you have a false prophet, you have a false teacher, somebody who's, speaking things and saying you can get your healing, and you are healed through them, and you genuinely are a believer, you genuinely were believed. And that's part of her testimony, right? Like she doesn't believe Benny Hinn is, but it's like, that is something she received. But Benny Hinn could very well go before God and say, Jesus, I did these things in your name. I did all this, and I'll be gone. Yeah. Right? It doesn't mean they haven't received a healing, but it doesn't always mean it's like an occultic thing. I want to clarify that.
Sure.
So it's the element of receiving your healing and what you do when you don't, but understanding that God being sovereign in it is good. Like that's a good thing. He's not safe, but he is good. Yeah.
Oh, this is so good. I could talk to you all day. I am so excited for listeners to get their hands on the book. I'm going to say the full title of it one more time. If listeners didn't catch it at the beginning of our episode, it's called Happy Lies: How a Movement You Probably Never Heard of Shaped Our Self-Obsessed World. So as you can tell, we kind of ran with one example of so many things in our culture that Melissa has addressed in this book. And so if this conversation piqued your interest at all, please go grab a copy of her book. And before we go, there's one question that I ask every guest that comes on the show. So I'm excited to ask you, Melissa. The podcast is called Radical Radiance, with a heart to just help women see what it looks like to radiate the heart of Jesus in our life, our work, our relationships, and all that we do. And it goes back to this verse that God kept putting on my heart as I was naming the show. It's Psalm 34, verse 5. It says, those who look to him are radiant, and their faces are never covered in shame. And so the question I love asking is, what about Jesus makes you radiant as you look to him?
I'm genuinely contemplating the question. I think it's his love. That's what brought me to believe, because I never knew that, like, the biblical view of what love is very different than how our culture defines it. And love being an attribute of God, it's agape love, which First John talks a lot about this, where it's a complete kind of love. Like we can experience love, but it's shortchanged. It's only made complete when we believe in him. And I think that that's the level of balance that we need to be able to understand what it means to underlove and overlove, like permissive, maybe boundaries. Like there's so much that flow from that. When to say no without feeling guilty about it, how to shut our faces and listen sometimes when we need to. Like how to love, how to control ourselves emotionally. I think that it encompasses it all. And so for me, I think that's what it would be.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I am so excited to introduce my people to you and for them to get their hands on Happy Lies. So I'll say the full title one more time: Happy Lies: How a Movement You Probably Never Heard of Shaped Our Self-Obsessed World. Melissa, thank you so much for being my guest today. I'm so grateful.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Melissa Dogherty as much as I did. Go grab a copy of Happy Lies: How a Movement You Probably Never Heard of Shaped Our Self-Obsessed World, wherever you like to buy books. And I cannot wait to be back with you next week for another incredible conversation.